He smiled at a wedding. Then she walked in. His ex, the one who vanished without a trace. But she wasn't alone. In her arms, 2 6-month-old twins. His twins. Twins he never knew existed. And in that moment, the most powerful crime lord in the city realized he'd just lost control of everything. What happens when the man who owns the underworld discovers he's a father? What happens when the woman who escaped comes back and changes the game forever? You need to see this. The wedding was perfect. Too perfect. White orchids imported from Seoul. Crystal chandeliers catching light like trapped stars. A string quartet playing something soft and meaningless in the corner of the grand ballroom. And Jamin smiled. Not because he was happy. Crime lords didn't do happiness. They did control. They did power. They did the kind of silence that made grown men sweat. But today, he smiled. Because his cousin was marrying into old money, and old money meant alliances. Alliances meant leverage. Leverage meant the kind of empire that didn't crumble when the FBI came knocking. So he stood near the champagne fountain in his custom black suit, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, his dark eyes scanning the room like a predator who'd learned to wear a tuxedo. Everyone here knew who he was. No one said it out loud. That's how power worked in his world. Whispered. Implied. Never spoken. His second-in-command, Minho, leaned in close. Everything's secure. Perimeter's tight. No surprises. Jamin nodded once. Slow, controlled. He hated surprises. Surprises got people killed. The music shifted. The bride was about to make her entrance. Guests turned toward the grand double doors. Champagne glasses paused mid-sip. Phones raised to capture the moment. Jamin didn't care about weddings, but he cared about appearances. So he turned. And that's when the world stopped. Not because of the bride, because of her. She walked through the side entrance. Not the grand doors, not the orchestrated moment, just slipped in like a ghost returning to haunt the living. Amara, 28. Skin like warm earth kissed by sunlight. Eyes that used to look at him like he was more than the monster he'd become. She was wearing something simple. Elegant. The kind of dress that didn't beg for attention because she didn't need to. But that's not what froze him. It was what she carried. 2 car seats. 2 tiny bundles wrapped in soft blue and soft pink. 2 impossibly small faces, sleeping soundly despite the noise of the world around them. His smile didn't fade slowly. It shattered. Like ice hit with a sledgehammer. She didn't look at him. Not yet. She moved through the crowd with the quiet determination of a woman who knew exactly what kind of bomb she was about to drop. And when her eyes finally met his across the champagne fountain, across the orchids and the chandeliers and the pretend civility, she didn't smile. She just stood there, holding 2 6-month-old twins. His twins. He knew it in his bones. In the way his heart forgot how to beat. In the way the entire room seemed to tilt on its axis. Minho whispered something. Jamin didn't hear it. He couldn't hear anything over the roar of blood in his ears. She was supposed to be gone. She left. 18 months ago. No note. No explanation. Just gone. He'd searched for her. Sent his best men. Called in favors that cost him alliances. Burned bridges he couldn't afford to burn. And found nothing. Because Amara knew how to disappear. She'd learned from the best. From him. Now she was here. In his world. In his territory. With 2 children who had his eyes. He moved without thinking. Through the crowd. Past the champagne. Past the murmurs starting to ripple through the guests because a crime lord didn't move like that unless something mattered. And nothing had mattered in 18 months. Until now. She watched him approach. Didn't flinch. Didn't run. Just stood there with her babies like she was daring him to deny what his heart already knew. He stopped 3 feet away. Close enough to see the exhaustion in her eyes. The way her hands gripped the car seat handles just a little too tight. The tremble she was trying to hide. Amara. His voice came out rough. Broken glass pretending to be language. Jamin? God, he'd missed that voice. Soft. Strong. The only thing that ever made him feel human. Who's... He couldn't finish the question. Because he already knew the answer. She tilted her head slightly. That look. The one that used to undo him. Yours. One word. It brought a crime lord to his knees without him even moving. The wedding continued around them. Music, laughter, champagne toasts. But in that moment, they were the only two people in the world, and everything he'd built, everything he'd destroyed, everything he'd become didn't matter because she came back and she brought them home. He didn't speak. For 30 seconds, that felt like drowning. Jamie just stared at the two sleeping faces in those car seats. A boy. A girl. 6 months old. His. Minho appeared at his shoulder, tense as a loaded gun. Boss. Leave. One word. Absolute. Minho hesitated. Crime lords didn't dismiss their security. Not in public. Not when threats were everywhere. I said leave. His second-in-command stepped back, slowly, then disappeared into the crowd like smoke. Amara watched it all with those eyes that saw too much. You haven't changed, she said quietly. You left. It wasn't an accusation. It was a fact, raw, bleeding. I had to. Why? She glanced down at the twins. Because I couldn't raise them in your world. Our world. No, Jamin, your world. The one where people disappear when they cross you, where loyalty is bought in blood, where I would have protected you. His voice cracked on the last word. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for the first time since she walked through that door, her armor cracked. I know you would have, she whispered. That's what terrified me. The boy, his son, stirred slightly, made a small sound. Not quite a cry. Just awareness. Jamin's entire body went rigid. He'd faced down rival syndicates, FBI raids, assassination attempts. But this 6-month-old baby made him freeze like a man who'd forgotten how to breathe. Amara bent down, lifted the boy from his car seat with the kind of practiced ease that came from months of doing this alone. 18 months. She'd been doing this alone for 18 months, while he tore apart the city looking for her. His name is Kai, she said softly. And this, she glanced at the sleeping girl, is Mia. You named them. Someone had to. The words hit harder than any bullet. She held Kai carefully. The boy's eyes fluttered open, dark, deep, exactly like Jamin's. And when those tiny eyes focused on him, on the father he'd never known, something inside Jamin's chest broke open. Can I? He stopped, swallowed, tried again. Can I hold him? Amara hesitated. Not because she didn't trust him with their son, because she knew what would happen the moment she put that baby in his arms. He'd never let go. Jamin, please. He never said please. Crime lords didn't beg. But he wasn't a crime lord right now. He was just a man who'd lost everything that mattered, and found it again in a hotel ballroom during someone else's wedding. She stepped closer, carefully transferred the small, warm weight of their son into his arms. Jamin held Kai like he was made of glass and prayers. The baby looked up at him. No fear, no recognition, just curiosity. And Jamin, the man who ruled the underworld with silence and steel, felt tears burn behind his eyes for the first time in 20 years. He looks like you, Amara whispered. He should look like you. You're beautiful. Jamin? Why didn't you tell me? His voice broke completely now. No pretense, no armor, just pain. She looked away. Because I was afraid of exactly this. This? You. Holding him. Looking at him like that. Like he's the only thing in the world that matters. He is. And that's the problem. She reached down, lifted Mia from her car seat. The girl was still sleeping, tiny fists curled tight. You can't protect them from your life, Jamin. You are your life. The empire, the enemies, the violence you pretend doesn't touch you. It won't touch them. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. The certainty in his voice made her stop, made her look at him. Really look. And what she saw terrified her. Because this wasn't the crime lord making a threat. This was a father making a vow. I'll burn it all down, he said quietly. Every alliance, every territory, every debt. You don't mean that. Try me. Kai made another small sound. Jamin adjusted his hold instinctively, like he'd been doing this his whole life. He hadn't. But biology didn't care. Love didn't care. The moment his son was placed in his arms, something ancient and absolute took over. Protect, provide, defend. You can't just walk away from what you built, Amara said. Watch me. Your enemies will learn what happens when someone threatens my family. The way he said family made her chest tighten. Because 18 months ago, it was just her. And he'd let her walk away. Now it was them. Kai. Mia. And he'd burn the world to keep them safe. I didn't come here to start a war, she said softly. Then why did you come? She looked at him. At their son in his arms. At the way his entire world had reorganized itself around 8 pounds of helpless humanity. Because they deserve to know their father. Even if their father is a monster. You're not a monster, Jamin. You left because of what I am. I left because I was afraid of what I'd become if I stayed. The wedding music swelled. Somewhere the bride and groom were dancing. But here, in this quiet corner of the ballroom, 2 people who'd loved and lost and found each other again stood holding the 2 most dangerous truths in the world. Hope and second chances. Stay, Jamin whispered. I can't. Stay. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking for a chance to be their father, to protect you, to pull us into your world. No, to pull myself out of it. She stared at him. He meant it. Every word. And that scared her more than anything. They stood there as the wedding celebration spun around them, champagne flowing, laughter rising, music weaving through conversations about things that didn't matter. None of it touched them. Jamin held Kai like the boy was the only solid thing in a collapsing universe. The baby's small hand curled around his finger, grip surprisingly strong for something so impossibly fragile. He's got your stubbornness, Amara said quietly, watching them. Good. He'll need it. That's what I'm afraid of. Mia stirred in Amara's arms, tiny face scrunching up in pre-cry distress. Amara shifted her automatically, that gentle bounce-sway motion that all mothers learned in the exhausted trenches of newborn nights. Jamin watched her, memorized her. 18 months. She'd carried them alone, delivered them alone, raised them through sleepless nights and first smiles and all the terrifying, beautiful moments he'd missed. Because of what he was. How did you manage? He asked quietly. The same way anyone does, one day at a time. Where were you? Does it matter? Yes. She met his eyes. Ghana. My mother's village, where your people couldn't find me, where your world doesn't reach. Ghana. 7,000 miles from his empire, from his reach, from him. You went home. I went where they'd be safe. The distinction cut deeper than she probably intended, because home wasn't a place for Amara. It was a feeling, and he used to be that feeling, before the violence got too close, before she saw what he really was beneath the expensive suits and careful control. My mother helped, Amara continued, with the twins. She didn't ask questions, just held them when I couldn't, fed me when I forgot to eat, reminded me why I left. And why did you come back? She looked down at Mia, at the small, perfect face that was half her, half him. Because she asked about you. She's 6 months old. She doesn't ask with words, she asks with her eyes. The same eyes you have. Both of them do. Her voice went soft, fragile. And I realized I was raising them with half a story, half a truth. I could tell them about love and safety and all the beautiful things in the world, but I couldn't tell them about you. Because I didn't know if you'd even want them? Jamin's voice came out sharp, broken. Amara, I would have destroyed everything to protect us. I know. That's what I was afraid of. Kai made a small cooing sound. Jamin looked down at his son, at eyes that held no judgment, no fear, just innocent trust that the man holding him was safe. I won't let my life touch them, he said quietly. You are your life. You can't separate the two. Then I'll change my life. Jamin, I mean it. And he did. She could see it in the way he held Kai. Like the boy was an anchor, a reason, a chance at something he'd stopped believing in years ago. Redemption. Your organization won't let you walk away, she said. They don't get a choice. Your enemies, We'll deal with me, not them. And if they come for us anyway? His eyes went dark, cold, the crime lord bleeding back through the cracks in his humanity. Then they'll learn why people whisper my name in the dark. It should have terrified her. It didn't, because she knew what he was. She'd always known. The question was whether she could love what he was and protect what they'd created. Minho appeared at the edge of the crowd. Subtle, but there. Jamin caught his eye, gave a small shake of his head. Not now. Not them. His second-in-command hesitated, then melted back into the celebration. He's loyal to you, Amara observed. He's loyal to the Empire. Is there a difference? There's about to be. She studied him. This man she'd loved. This man she'd run from. This man holding their son like he'd just discovered the only thing worth protecting. If I stay, she said carefully, it's not forever. It's trial. To see if you can really do this. If we can really do this. I'll take trial. And if it doesn't work, it will work. You don't know that. I know I've spent 18 months in hell without you. I know I just found out I have 2 children I didn't know existed. I know. His voice cracked. I know I can't lose you again. Mia chose that moment to fully wake up. Small whimper turning into a building cry. Amara started the complicated dance of soothing while Jamin watched, helpless and fascinated. She's hungry, Amara said. I need to feed her. There's a private room, upstairs. My cousin reserved it for family. I'm not family. You're the mother of my children. That makes you more family than anyone in this building. The certainty in his voice wrapped around her like armor. Like safety. Like the thing she'd been running from and toward for 18 months. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Show me the room. He moved immediately. Careful with Kai, protective without being possessive. They made their way through the celebration, his broad shoulders cutting a path, guests parting automatically because they knew better than to get in his way. No one stopped them. No one asked questions. They just stared as the crime lord walked past with a baby in his arms, and a woman at his side who looked like she'd walked out of his past and into his future. The private room was quiet, elegant, away from the chaos. Amara settled into a chair, adjusted Mia, began the intimate ritual of feeding. Jamin stood there with Kai, suddenly awkward. Uncertain. You can sit, Amara said gently. Where? Anywhere that's not hovering. He sat, carefully, still holding Kai like the boy might disappear. You're allowed to relax, she said. I don't know how. With them, you just trust. I don't trust. Then learn. Kai yawned, small mouth opening wide, tiny tongue visible. And Jamin smiled. Not the controlled, calculated smile he wore for the world. A real one. Soft, fragile, absolutely genuine. Amara's heart cracked open all over again. There he is, she whispered. Who? The man I fell in love with before the Empire, before the fear. Just you. He looked at her over their son's head. And in that moment, surrounded by silk wallpaper and crystal chandeliers and the muffled sounds of a wedding celebration they'd crashed, they weren't a crime lord and the woman who ran. They were just 2 people who'd made something beautiful in the middle of all their broken pieces. Stay, he whispered again. This time, she didn't say no. She didn't say yes. She just smiled. Small. Fragile. Hopeful. And that was enough. For now. The first night was the hardest. Not because of the twins, though Mia woke 3 times and Kai twice, their cries cutting through the silence of Jamin's penthouse like sirens in the dark. Hard because Amara was here, in his space, in his world. In the custom-built fortress he'd created to keep everyone out. And now she was in, with their children, rewriting every rule he'd lived by. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building he owned in the heart of the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a skyline he controlled through fear and favors. Marble floors that echoed. Modern art that cost more than most people made in a year. Cold, expensive, empty, until tonight. Now there were baby bottles drying on his kitchen counter. A portable crib set up in the master bedroom. Soft blankets draped over his black leather couch. Color in a world of monochrome. Life in a tomb. Jamin stood by the window at 3 a.m., Kai sleeping against his shoulder. The boy had been fussy. Amara was exhausted from feeding Mia, so he'd taken his son and walked. Just walked. Through rooms that suddenly felt too big and too small at the same time. "You're good at this." Amara's voice came soft from the bedroom doorway. He turned. She was wrapped in one of his shirts, black silk that fell to her thighs, her natural hair pulled back, eyes heavy with the kind of tired that came from months of doing this alone. She was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. But now she was something else. Powerful. Maternal. Untouchable in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with purpose. "I'm not good at anything that matters," he said quietly. "You matter to him." Kai stirred slightly at the sound of his mother's voice, but didn't wake. Just settled deeper against Jamin's chest, small fist curling in the fabric of his shirt. Trust. Absolute. Innocent. Unearned. "How do you do this every night?" Jamin asked. "You just do. Because the alternative is letting them cry, and that's not an option. You did this alone." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Against himself. Amara crossed the room slowly, stood beside him at the window. Close enough that he could smell her, that scent that used to drive him insane. Shea butter and something floral he could never name. Home. She smelled like home. "I wasn't completely alone," she said. "My mother helped. The village women. They have this way of raising children together. No one does it alone. You could have called me." And said what? "Hey, remember me? The woman you were sleeping with 18 months ago? Surprise? You're a father to twins you never wanted? I would have wanted them. You didn't even want me, Jamin. Not really. I was just..." She stopped. Swallowed. "I was just the escape. The soft place you came to when your world got too hard." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" He turned to face her fully. Kai still sleeping between them like a tiny referee. "You are the only real thing in my life," Jamin said quietly. "Everything else is performance, strategy, survival. But you..." His voice cracked. "You were the only person who looked at me and didn't see what I could do for them. You just saw." The words hung in the air like... He didn't deny. Couldn't. "The warehouse," Amara continued softly. 18 months. Thought we could grab dinner after. Saw the blood under... And I realized... Tears slipped down her cheeks now. I realized that the man I loved was also the man people feared. And I didn't know how to reconcile those two things. So you ran. So I survived. And got pregnant. Yeah, that too. A sound escaped him. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sob, just acknowledgement of the cosmic joke that had brought them here. "I found out 2 weeks after I left," Amara said. "Took 3 tests because I couldn't believe it, and by the time I confirmed it, I was already in Ghana, already safe, already building a life where you couldn't find me. Why twins?" She smiled slightly. "Your family or mine?" "Mine. My grandmother was a twin. Her mother, too. Goes back generations. So you gave me 2 reasons to never come back. And yet here you are." She looked at Kai. At the small, perfect face that was half hers, half his. "Here I am." Jamin shifted Kai carefully, moved toward the crib Amara had set up, laid his son down with a kind of gentleness that looked wrong on a man his size, a man with his reputation. But Kai didn't care about reputation. He just slept. Safe. Warm. Loved. When Jamin turned back, Amara was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "What?" he asked. "You're different with them." "How?" "Softer. Real. Like the mask comes off. The mask keeps us safe. Or keeps you lonely." The truth in her words cut clean through. He'd been lonely for 18 months. Hell, he'd been lonely for years before that. Just didn't realize it until she left and took the warmth with her. "Minho wants to meet them," Jamin said, changing the subject. "Your second in command?" "He's been asking all day. Wants to know if they need security, protection, a full detail. They're babies, not diplomats. They're my babies. That makes them targets." The coldness in his voice made her shiver. Because that was the problem, wasn't it? Loving him meant accepting what he was. And what he was came with enemies. How many people want you dead? She asked quietly. How many want me alive? That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Mia made a sound from the bedroom. Not quite crying, just awareness. Amara moved automatically, but Jamin caught her wrist gently. I'll get her. You don't have to. I want to. And he did. Wanted to learn their rhythms, their cries, the difference between hungry and tired and just needing to be held. Wanted to be the father he never thought he'd be. He picked up Mia carefully. She was smaller than Kai, more delicate. Her eyes, when they fluttered open, were lighter. More like Amara's. Hey, little one, he whispered. Mia stared at him. No recognition, just curiosity. And then she smiled. Small, gummy, absolutely devastating. Jamin's entire world reorganized itself around that smile. She likes you, Amara said softly from the doorway. How can you tell? Because she's smiling. She doesn't smile at strangers. I'm her father. You're also a stranger. To her. For now. The words hurt. But they were true. He'd missed 6 months, half a year of their lives. First smiles, first laughs. All the impossible tiny moments that made up a childhood. Gone. Because Amara ran, and because he gave her a reason to. I'll make up for it, he said quietly. You can't make up for lost time. You can only make the most of what's left. Then I'll make the most of every second. Mia yawned, stretched, settled against his chest like she'd been doing it her whole life, like she knew, somewhere deep in her DNA, in the way babies just know things, that this man would burn the world for her. She needs to eat soon, Amara said. How soon? Maybe 20 minutes. Can I just hold her until then? Amara's expression softened. Yeah, you can hold her. So he did. Held his daughter while the city slept below them. While Amara watched from the doorway with an expression that was part fear, part hope, part something that looked like the beginning of forgiveness. And in that moment, 3:47 a.m. on a night that felt like the start of everything, Jamin made a decision. He'd been building an empire for 15 years. Time to build something that actually mattered. A family. Even if it killed him. Even if it cost him everything. Some things were worth burning for. Morning came too fast. Jamin had maybe slept an hour. Maybe. Hard to tell when every sound from the twins pulled him instantly awake. Amara moved through exhaustion like she'd been born to it. Feeding, changing, soothing. A dance she'd perfected over 6 months of solo performance. He watched, learned, memorized. The way she tested bottle temperature on her wrist. How she supported Mia's head during burping. The specific bounce rhythm that worked for Kai when he was fussy. A lifetime of knowledge he didn't have, but wanted. His phone buzzed at 7 a.m. Minho. Of course. Council wants a meeting. Jamin stared at the message. The council. 5 men who ran the city's underworld with him. Partners in blood and profit. Allies until they weren't. They'd heard. Of course they'd heard. Crime lords didn't have secrets. They had information that cost enough to keep quiet. And yesterday's scene at the wedding? That information was free. He typed back, "Tell them I'm busy." The response was immediate. They insist. Jamin looked up. Amara was feeding Mia, gaze distant, lost in whatever mothers thought about during pre-dawn feedings. She looked fragile in the early light. She wasn't. But his world would try to make her that way. 1 hour. My office. Alone. He put the phone down. You have to go, Amara said quietly. Not a question. I have a meeting. About us. About business. We're your business now. That's the problem. He moved closer, sat beside her on the couch. Kai was sleeping in the bassinet, small chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. Peace. For now. They want to know what yesterday meant, Jamin said. You. The twins. What it changes. And what does it change? Everything. That's what I was afraid of. He reached out, touched her face gently. She didn't pull away. Progress. I won't let them touch you, he said. You can't control everything. Watch me. Jamin, I mean it. Whatever they want, whatever they demand. The answer is no if it puts you at risk. And if they don't accept that answer, his eyes went cold, then they'll learn why I run this city and they just work for me. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Because Amara understood what he didn't want to say out loud. Choosing them meant war, and war meant casualties. Go to your meeting, she said softly. But come back. Always. Promise me. I promise. He stood, dressed in the walk-in closet, custom suit, black, sharp enough to cut, the armor he wore when dealing with men who respected nothing but power. When he emerged, Amara was watching him with an expression he remembered. The one that said she was looking at a stranger. The crime lord. Not the man who'd held their daughter at 3 a.m. and smiled like he'd discovered magic. It's just clothes, he said quietly. It's never just clothes with you. Fair. He crossed to her, bent down, kissed her forehead gently. I'll be back in 2 hours. Call if you need anything at all. We'll be fine. Minho is outside. He won't come in unless you ask, but he's there. A guard? A friend. He's good people. You'll like him. I don't need protection. Humor me. She sighed, but nodded. He left before he could change his mind, before he could say fuck the council and the empire and everything that wasn't them. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. Minho was waiting in the lobby, tall, sharp, loyal to a fault. Boss. She's upstairs. Don't disturb her unless she asks, but be ready. For? Anything. Minho nodded once. Understood. They'd been working together for 8 years. He knew when Jaemin was serious. And right now, deadly serious. The drive to his office took 15 minutes through morning traffic. The building was downtown, sleek, modern, legal on paper, profitable in practice, import-export. That's what the sign said. What they actually imported and exported varied depending on what paid best. The council was waiting in the conference room. 5 men, 5 different territories, 5 different flavors of dangerous. Marcus, the oldest, ran the docks, built like a boxer who'd won too many fights. Dmitri, Russian, controlled the north side, eyes like frozen lakes. Chen, quiet, deadly, had connections that reached back to Beijing. Rashid, smooth, ran the financial networks, made dirty money clean. And Vincent, the youngest, ambitious, hungry, the one Jaemin trusted least. They all stood when he entered. Respect, for now. Gentlemen, Jaemin said smoothly, took his seat at the head of the table. This better be important. It is, Marcus said, his voice like gravel. We heard about yesterday. I went to a wedding. Since when is that council business? Since you showed up with a family we didn't know existed, Vincent cut in. Too eager, too sharp. Jaemin's gaze slid to him, cold, absolute. My personal life isn't up for discussion. It is when it affects operations, Dmitri said. Woman, 2 children, that's leverage, that's weakness. That's off limits. Nothing is off limits in our world, Chen said quietly. You taught us that. Fair point. Jaemin had built his reputation on the idea that everyone had pressure points. Everyone could be controlled. And now he'd just given the world his. What do you want? He asked directly. Rashid leaned forward. Assurance that this development won't compromise our operations, our security, our profit. It won't. How can you be sure? Because I said so. Vincent laughed, short, sharp. That's not how this works. Then how does it work, Vincent? Please, enlighten me. The room went cold, because everyone here knew what that tone meant. Danger. Vincent swallowed, but pressed on. You've always said family is weakness, that attachments make us vulnerable. And now Now I'm what? Human? Is that the crime? It could be, Marcus said carefully. If the wrong people find out. Use it against you. Against us. Then we make sure the wrong people don't find out. Too late, Dmitri said. He slid a tablet across the table. This was posted 4 hours ago. Jaemin looked at the screen. Social media, wedding photos. Him holding Kai. Amara beside him. Clear, public, undeniable. Shit, he muttered. Exactly, Chen said. By now, every rival organization in 3 states knows you have children. They're already calculating how to use that information. Then we make it clear what happens if they try. And if they don't care about threats? Vincent asked. If they decide the best way to hurt you is to hurt them? Jamin's hands curled into fists under the table. Because Vincent was right. In their world, family wasn't sacred, it was ammunition. I'll handle it, Jamin said quietly. How? Rashid pressed. However I have to. That's not good enough. Then what do you want from me? His voice rose slightly, controlled, but barely. You want me to send them away? Pretend they don't exist? Hide them like some dirty secret? We want you to remember who you are, Marcus said, what we built, and what we'll lose if you go soft. I'm not going soft. I'm being a father. Those 2 things are incompatible in our world, Dimitri said flatly. Silence, heavy, suffocating. Jamin looked at each of them, these men he'd bled with, built with, trusted with his life, and realized trust only went so far. I'm taking 2 weeks, he said finally. Personal time. Vincent, you'll handle the port operations. Dimitri, North Side stays locked down. Chen, I need you on the financial transfers. Marcus, keep the docks clean. Rashid, make sure our accounts stay invisible. 2 weeks? Vincent sounded incredulous. You can't just... I can, and I am. You all report to Min-ho. He has full authority. Any problems, he handles them. Any major decisions, he calls me. But otherwise... Jamin stood. I'm unavailable. This is a mistake, Vincent said. Then it's my mistake to make. He walked toward the door. Jamin, Marcus called. We're just trying to protect what we built. So am I. They'll come for them. You know they will. He turned. Looked at Marcus. At all of them. Let them try. The words hung in the air like a death sentence, because everyone in that room knew what Jamin was capable of when something mattered. And this? This mattered more than anything ever had. He left the building, got in his car, drove back to the penthouse with his jaw clenched and his mind racing. The council was right. He'd just painted a target on his children, but he'd be damned if he'd hide them. Damned if he'd pretend they didn't exist. They were his. And he'd burn anyone who tried to take them. When he walked back into the penthouse, Amara was on the couch, both twins sleeping in their bassinets beside her. She looked up, saw his face. That bad? They know. About us? About everything. She paled slightly. What does that mean? He sat beside her, took her hand, held it like an anchor. It means we're visible. And visibility is dangerous. But, he squeezed gently. I'm not running. I'm not hiding you. I'm just being smart about protection. What kind of protection? The kind that keeps you safe, no matter what it costs me. Jamin, I mean it. Whatever it takes. They're not touching you. Not touching our children. I don't care who I have to go through. She studied his face, saw the determination there, the absolute certainty, and something in her chest cracked open, because he meant every word. For better or worse, he'd chosen them. Now they just had to survive what came next. 3 days passed in a strange domestic rhythm that Jamin had never experienced. Morning started early. 5 a.m. when Mia woke hungry. He'd learned to prepare bottles while half asleep. Learned the exact temperature Amara approved of. Learned that Kai liked to be walked while Mia preferred to be bounced. Small things. Important things. The things that made him a father instead of just a man with children. Min-ho stopped by twice a day. Updates, reports, nothing urgent. The city was quiet. Too quiet. They're planning something, Jamin said on day 3. Min-ho nodded. The Kozlov family. They've been asking questions. About the twins. About Amara. Tell them to stop asking. I did. They didn't listen. Jamin's jaw tightened. The Kozlovs. Russian mafia. Dimitri's cousins, technically, but no love lost between the branches. They'd been pushing at his territory for months. Now they had a reason to push harder. Double the security, Jamin said, but keep it invisible. I don't want Amara feeling like she's in a prison. Already done. 4-man rotation, perimeter only. They won't even know they're there. Good. Minho hesitated. Boss, the council is getting restless. Vincent especially. He's been making moves, building alliances. Let him? You sure? Vincent's ambitious, not stupid. He knows what happens if he crosses me. And if he decides the risk is worth it? Jaemin looked at his second in command. Then we remind him why it's not. Minho nodded. Left. Jaemin turned back to the window. The city stretched below him. His kingdom, his empire, built on blood and fear and carefully calculated violence. And now he was supposed to walk away from it? For what? Bottles and diapers and 3 a.m. feedings? Yes, a voice in his head whispered. Exactly that. You're thinking too loud, Amara said from behind him. He turned. She was holding Kai, the boy awake and alert, tiny hands reaching for nothing in particular. Just work thoughts, he said. Work thoughts that involve the Russian mafia? He blinked. You heard that? These walls aren't as thick as you think. Plus, Minho has a voice that carries. He'll be more careful. Or you could just tell me what's happening, instead of pretending everything's fine. Jaemin crossed to her, looked down at his son. Kai's eyes tracked him. Recognition there now. 3 days, and the boy knew his face. There's a family, he said quietly. The Kozlovs. They've been asking about you, about the twins. Asking what? Where you are, where you came from, how serious this is. And what did your people tell them? Nothing, but that won't stop them from finding out on their own. Amara shifted Kai to her other arm. So what do we do? We? You think I'm just going to sit here and let you handle everything? These are my children too, Jaemin. If there's danger, I need to know. He stared at her. This woman who'd run from his world but was now standing in the middle of it, demanding transparency. The safest thing would be to send you away, he said. Back to Ghana, somewhere they can't reach you. No, Amara. I didn't come back to run again. I came back because they deserve to know their father, and you deserve to know them. If we leave now, that cycle just continues. You missing their lives, them missing you. Better missing than dead. That's not a choice I'm willing to make. I am. They stared at each other. Impasse. Kai made a sound, not quite a cry, just awareness that the energy in the room had shifted. Amara softened, looked down at their son. We stay, together, and you figure out how to keep us safe without sending us away. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. He wanted to argue, to explain that this wasn't how his world worked, that safety meant distance, protection meant separation. But looking at her, at the determination in her eyes, the absolute refusal to back down, he realized she was right. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, we stay. Together. But you follow my security protocols, all of them. No arguments. What protocols? Minho will explain, but basically, you don't leave the building without me. You don't answer the door. You don't trust anyone who isn't me or Minho. That's paranoid. That's survival, she considered, then nodded. Fine, but you talk to me. About the threats, the plans, the risks. I'm not a child, Jaemin. I can handle the truth. Can you? I survived 6 months raising twins alone in a foreign country. I think I can handle knowing when someone wants to hurt us. Fair point. The Kozlovs are testing, he said. Seeing how serious I am, how vulnerable this makes me. If they decide I'm weak, they'll attack. Yes. And if they do? His eyes went dark, cold, the crime lord surfacing through the cracks in his newfound domesticity. Then I'll show them what happens when someone threatens my family. Amara should have been scared. She wasn't, because she knew him, knew what he was capable of. And maybe that made her crazy, or maybe it just made her a mother, willing to stand beside a monster if it meant her children were safe. Tell me about them, she said. The Kozlovs. Who are they? So he did. Told her about Viktor Kozlov, the patriarch, 70 years old and twice as ruthless. About his 3 sons who ran different parts of the Russian operation, about their connections, their resources, their reputation for holding grudges that lasted generations. Amara listened, absorbed, asked smart questions. And when he was done, she said, "So basically, they're like you, but with accents." He almost smiled. "Basically. Then you know how they think." "I do." "So you can beat them." "I can." "Then do it. Before they make a move." "That's not how this works. I can't just—" "Why not? You said they're testing, so stop letting them test. Show them why testing you was a mistake." She said it so simply, like violence was just another Tuesday. Maybe she'd learned more from him than he thought. "If I move first," he said carefully, "it starts a war. And if you wait, they might back down, or they might attack, and we're not ready." True. Painfully true. Jaemin looked at Kai, at the small, perfect face that trusted him completely. "I need to make some calls," he said. "Do what you have to do." He kissed her forehead, kissed Kai's, went to his office. Minho answered on the first ring. "I need eyes on the Kozlov compound," Jaemin said. "All of them. Father, sons, associates. I want to know what they're planning before they plan it." "Already on it. I'll have a report by tonight." "Good. And Minho?" "Yeah, boss. If they make a move, any move, toward Amara or the twins, I want authorization to respond immediately. No council approval, no debate, just action." Silence on the other end. Then, "You sure? That's going to piss people off." "I don't care." "All right, I'll spread the word. Anyone touches your family, they're dead." Message received. Not just dead, example. Understood. Jaemin hung up, stared at his reflection in the office window. This was the line, wasn't it? The moment he chose family over empire. Love over power. Them over everything. And if that choice cost him his throne, so be it. Some things were worth losing everything for. He walked back into the living room. Amara was feeding Mia now. Kai asleep in his bassinet. "It's handled," he said. "Just like that?" "Just like that." She studied him. "What did you do?" "Made it clear that you're untouchable. All of you. And if they don't care about clear, then I'll make it clearer." The certainty in his voice wrapped around her like armor, like safety, like the thing she'd been afraid of and running toward for 18 months. "Come here," she said softly. He sat beside her, watched Mia eat with the kind of focus that made everything else disappear. "You know what's funny?" Amara said. "What?" 18 months ago, I ran because I was afraid of your world, and now I'm more afraid of leaving it." "Why?" "Because out there," she gestured vaguely toward the windows, "I'm alone. Just me and them against whatever comes. But in here, with you, we're a team, a family, and that feels safer. Even with the danger, even with the Kozlovs. It just feels safer." He took her free hand, held it gently. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said. "I know. I mean it, whatever it costs. Whoever I have to go through." "I know, Jaemin. I've always known." Mia finished eating. Amara burped her gently. The baby made small, satisfied sounds. And Jaemin sat there on his expensive couch in his expensive penthouse overlooking his expensive city, and realized expensive meant nothing. Power meant nothing. Fear meant nothing. This, right here, Amara, Kai, Mia, this was everything. "I love you," he said quietly. She looked at him. Really looked. "I know," she whispered. "I love you too. Even when it scares me, even when I shouldn't. I just do." He kissed her then, soft, gentle, full of promise. And when they pulled apart, Maya was watching them with curious eyes. "She's judging us," Amara said with a small laugh. "Let her. She should have high standards." "Oh God, you're already that dad." "What dad?" "The one who thinks no one will ever be good enough for his daughter." "They won't." She laughed, real, genuine, and the sound filled his empty penthouse with something he'd never had before. Joy, simple, uncomplicated, perfect. "Stay forever," he said. "Ask me again in 2 weeks." "Why 2 weeks?" "Because that's when the real work starts. When the novelty wears off, when you realize babies don't sleep and toddlers are chaos, and kids ask a million questions. That's when I'll know if you're serious. I'm serious now. Then prove it. 2 weeks. Be the father they need. Not the crime lord everyone fears. Just be their dad. He nodded. I can do that. We'll see. But she was smiling when she said it. And that was enough, for now. Outside, the city continued its dangerous dance. The Kozlovs plotted. The council schemed.